Welcome to Your Need to Know. Today we are going to be talking about Fall for the Book, a book festival at George Mason University that's held every October. Joining me today is Suzy Rigdon-Williams and Kara Oakleaf. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So this is very exciting because it's the 20th year of Fall for the Book. So that's 2 decades of bringing authors and books to the public for free.
It is, yes. The very first festival was in 1999. It was started as a partnership between George Mason University and the city of Fairfax. In that first festival, I think they had about 25 authors, and it was 2 days long, and now we're a 4-day festival, and we have over 150 authors. So
well,
really
as both
excited.
a George Mason alumni and a Fairfax City resident, I can tell you this is awesome and exciting for me every year. So
yes.
Tell us a little bit about how you get authors to come to this festival. I mean, is this a year-long thing to do outreach to people asking them to join the festival?
Pretty much. So we get authors through a bunch of different ways. One is they are suggested to us and we reach out directly and say, hey, we'd love to have you at our festival. Some authors submit to us, say we'd love to participate, and then just through conversations that we have, finding people who would be a really great fit and have dynamic books coming out, buzzworthy books that we think would be great with the festival. But it definitely takes a while.
It does. We have a lot of great partners, too, that work with us on building the festival. The Fairfax County Public Library is one of our biggest sponsors, so they really help us get a sense of who's reading what and who they'd like to see at the festival. We work with professors from all different disciplines across the university as well.
Speaking of which, I should say that both of you are creative writing professors, so I'm sure you've got favorites of your own.
We absolutely do, yes. One of my favorite things about teaching at Mason and doing the Fall for the Book Festival is getting a chance to bring my students to those events and letting them hear an author in person whose work we've already read in the class or whose work they're about to read. It's a really exciting experience for writing students.
Especially because for many students, it's the first time they've ever met an author. And it's such a cool experience. I was teaching literature and we were going to see one of the authors we had read, and I said, just offhand as they were leaving class, oh, and remember to bring your book, she'll sign it. And they got so excited, and then I got to watch them interact. And that's one of the reasons that I love the festival so much and working with the festival is it's not just my class. Everybody who comes, you can meet your next favorite writer or the writer that you've loved forever. I mean, selfishly, I got to meet Tim O'Brien, and that was just an incredible evening. He made me cry in his talk, and then I got to meet him and get a photo with him and get my book signed, and that was just so special, and I love to extend that to everybody in the community.
And that's the thing about hearing an author talk about their work, because you've read the book and you love it, or maybe you're going to hear an author whose book you haven't read, but you know something about the genre or the topic, or you've heard about the book. But it's the process, like being able, how you develop the characters, or how you did the dialogue, or where the idea came from, or how long did it take? What is your process? Do you write every day? I mean, these are the things I think people who love books, and I am a book lover, the things you want to know about how the book came to life.
And it's so different for every author, too. Everybody has their own writing process. Everybody takes a different amount of time to write a book. Everybody focuses on different things and struggles with different challenges. And that's something that's really interesting to be able to hear them talk about, because when you have a book, the audience only ever really sees the finished product. So it's really an interesting kind of behind-the-scenes look
about how the sausage is made, right?
Exactly.
It's like, so how did you come up with that? And I'm always interested with how they came up with the idea for the book too, because that is also an interesting story about how somebody pursued, the research or looked into the topic, or the characters came to them. I think the recent interviews, Neil Simon passed away recently, and there was an interview on NPR, and he said he never started with the dialogue. He always started with visualizing the characters, and the dialogue just came. They spoke for themselves.
And I think Stephen King, so he was one of our headliners, I think in 2011, and Stephen King has to make sure the first line is perfect before he moves on, and that is so not how I write. But it's so great to say, okay, this author took 10 years to finish this book, this author did it in 2 years, and just getting that variety. And I mean, half of our audience is Mason students, and I think it's so great. I always teach an essay by Anne Lamott about, being able to write bad first drafts. And I think that's so important to listen to these published authors they've read their whole lives say, oh yeah, this took me a lot of work, a lot of failure, and then I finally got here with like this book that you have on your shelf.
You know, and I think that's important too, because people who love to read often think they can't write, or they're afraid of the writing process, or like, I could never be Anne Lamott. Like, you know, how did she get there? And so when you hear them talk about their struggles, you know, and how they started, nobody is born a great writer. There's a lot of ugly first drafts. There's a lot of terrible things that went before the thing happened.
Oh yeah.
It's a process and a practice for everybody who does it, no matter whether they're, you know, at the late stages of their career and have published dozens of books, or whether they're just starting out for the first time.
So how do you guys, just logistically speaking, how do you take all of these writers and plug them into venues? I mean, this is a gargantuan sort of enterprise. As you've grown from being small to being a 4-day festival, you've got things going on simultaneously, and they are everywhere.
Yeah, so we have events. Most of our events are at George Mason University and in the city of Fairfax. And then we also partner with libraries in Fairfax as well. And it's very much a puzzle. And I definitely have a day or two where I just have a chart that I'm writing and erasing and trying to fit in. But a lot of times the way that we like to do it is figure out who works well, whose books resonates well with one another. You know, we have a YA panel with Julia Lynn Rubin and Robin Talley. These are local DC writers, and both of their books, although set in very different times, one is like a modern kind of gritty urban setting, and one is like 1950s. But they still have a coming of age, trying to understand your sexuality in a time that doesn't understand your sexuality, that kind of thing. So looking for those types of great thematic resonances is fun for me. And then figuring, okay, now where do they go? But just,
you know, it's interesting when you say YA, which is young adult,
yes,
young adult literature, and there's so many things that get pigeonholed into YA literature that ends up being far more, you know, embraced. I remember the Philip Pullman's The Dark Materials trilogy was supposed to be YA, young adult, and my mother read it and it's like, you shouldn't let your children read this. And I'm thinking, but my children, after having listened to the audiobooks as children, we listened to The Golden Compass not that long ago on a long trip, and they're like, there's so much to this book, I had no idea. And so that is very interesting to me about books intended for young adults, where you might understand it in one way when you're younger, and an adult understands it in an entirely different way.
Yeah, there are almost as many, I think, right now, adult readers of YA fiction as there
Absolutely,
are
there
teenagers. And I really think that in many cases, teenagers are prepared for those big issues that YA is tackling. You know, they are in ways that maybe we didn't think about the YA genre 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's grown up.
Yeah, Turtles All the Way Down. I read that book, YA book, right? And it's about mental illness, and just done so well. And I have a friend who reads a lot of YA, and I always look at her review on Goodreads, because that's how I know what she thinks.
Absolutely.
So, and again, I like this festival because it is a lot of crowdsourcing. When you sit in a room with other people who've come who ask amazing questions, you know, it's people you're sitting with as much as the author at the head of the room, who really brings alive the questions you have about the book and the author and literature.
Absolutely. And one of the other things I love about the festival, so you're talking about, you know, adult readers, everybody getting different things out of young adult literature, and I'd say that is true for every genre. And one of the nice things about the festival is you can experiment with different genres. So say, normally I only read crime fiction. That's great, and here's a chance for me to go also to a little bit of poetry, a little bit of science. I mean, we have Mike Leinbach coming. He was the last launch director for the Kennedy Space Center. He's going to talk about the Columbia shuttle disaster in 2003. And when would I have a chance to ask him a question and listen to him talk? You know, so it's a really great experience. General Michael Hayden, who is the former head of the NSA and CIA. He's going to be there on our big Saturday Community Day talking about, you know, the state of American intelligence. When else am I going to have a chance to hear him speak and dip my toes into these genres that I don't always read?
You know, and we probably benefit from George Mason being so close to Washington, D.C. right? Like it's easier to get people, like you don't live in the middle of South Dakota trying to put on a book festival, right? So is it a little bit easier to try to get these people because of our location?
In a lot of ways, yeah. It's always very convenient to be able to get East Coast authors. And although we know people from around the country who run these kind of book festivals, and they are happening, in the Dakotas and in the Midwest and the prairie lands.
Well, it says something that people still read books with all the technology we have and all of the things that you can watch and satellite and videos and YouTube. You would think, oh my goodness, should we be expecting the demise of the book? But it seems to me that the book lovers and books and authors and writers are very healthy, going strong, and that we have no need to be concerned about the fact that we'll ever run out of books or authors or.
We have had people at our festival ask authors to sign their Kindles, and the authors will do it.
Wow, like that is so wow.
Yeah. So for some people the format's changing, but paper books don't seem to be going anywhere either.
I don't think so. And sometimes I will also read a book on Kindle, especially if you're traveling a lot, because it used to be back in the days before technology, and I'm very old. By the way, I'm a 1984 alumni of George Mason University. I don't yeah, right. So it's very old. But when you're traveling, I used to pack books, but books are so heavy to carry that now if I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks or something, I just download all the Kindle books onto my iPad, and that works really well.
Yeah, you know how you can do that with Fall for the Book? The Fairfax County Library always curates a list of Fall for the Book authors on their website. So you can get their ebooks. Probably, I'm assuming you can get the print books as well if they've got the audiobooks. But that's a fun way to get connected either with the authors coming to the library or coming to campus.
They curate a list. Now, I did not know that. That makes it very easy for people to find them all.
Yeah, particularly if you use the Overdrive app for renting ebooks from the library. Closer to the festival, you'll see kind of a list of different festival authors that you might want to check out on your Overdrive app for the Fairfax County Public Library.
Because some of them obviously jump out, but you've tried to assemble a great diversity of authors too. So it's not just getting the big names, the ones that's kind of like on Oprah Winfrey's recommended list. Reese Witherspoon now has her own book group. So many people, it's like, and my book club is. And I love that because all of this says that people care about reading, people care about authors. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll ask you to talk about some of your favorite authors. I know they're all our favorites, but still highlight for us and how people can find these events. So when we come back from this break, we're going to be talking further about Fall for the Book. So get a piece of paper and a pencil.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes and you come to mine. This is it, first impression, my way in. But can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or being the first one to always step up. No, that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent that is dedicated, hardworking, and determined like me.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today we're talking about fall for the book. We are talking with Kara Oakleaf and Suzy Rigdon-Williams. Thank you ladies so much for joining us. And we're very excited to hear about what some of your favorite highlights are. I've instructed people to get their pencil and their piece of paper ready so that they can make notes about this. So why don't you tell us kind of what's at the top of your hit parade?
Sure. So one author I'm really excited about is Tayari Jones. She's going to be there on the opening night of the festival, Wednesday, October 10th. And her book, of course, is An American Marriage. This was the Oakleaf
Yes,
book
I've
club
heard
pick.
so much about that book.
It's a really fantastic book. It looks at the trajectory of a relationship between this African American couple after the husband is falsely accused of a crime and ends up going to prison for it. So it looks at how that affects their marriage over the coming years and what happens to them both while he's in prison and then after it comes out that he was not the perpetrator of the crime. A lot of book clubs are reading this one, so it's a really good book club pick. I'm particularly excited about this one because I met Tayari Jones when I was a student and her very first book was out and she visited a class of mine. So it's been really exciting to watch her career kind of really take off over the next several books she wrote and really see the splash American Marriage has made.
That is fantastic. And you, Suzy?
All of them? No.
Yeah. Well, you talked about the Columbia book. I think is going to be very exciting because
Absolutely.
There's just so much around how that happened, why it happened. It's been talked about in a lot of other books.
Absolutely. And I mean, we were talking before the break about the benefits of being in the DC region, and our Thursday night headliner is Congressman John Lewis and his co-author Andrew Iden. And he's coming out. We had to make sure that it wasn't going to conflict with any votes on the floor. So, he's going to come out and talk about his graphic memoir, March, which was actually given to all of the incoming freshmen at Mason. It's the common read. So that is going to be just such a special opportunity to get to hear him speak about his long road to the civil rights movement.
He's an icon in the civil rights movement, but the fact that he chose to do a graphic novel as a way of describing it and explaining it, because my kids are of the age that they grew up with anime and they grew up with graphic novels, which is not something like it's not my thing, but it's their thing. And so the fact that he chose to tell the story that way in that particular genre, fascinating to me.
I think it really opens up this story to a whole new set of readers, or opens it up in a different way to get students and community members and anybody who's interested in this story to really interact with his life and with the civil rights movement in a different, more visual way. So I think that's really fantastic. And I'm looking forward. Our first day of school on, when was it? I don't know. August, whatever it was. The first day of school at Mason, I went outside to read, and there was a student sitting there reading March. And I was like, this is great.
It is great. You discover a lot of authors, too. I mean, I remember going to a particular talk on the subject of LGBTQ justice several years ago and ended up meeting an author, an activist, who talked about her book, and I have run into her several other times at different conferences. But I just went because of the subject matter and wanting to know more about the subject matter rather than being familiar with the author, because I ended up reading her book after I met her. So this is another way for people to discover new authors too.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the authors that we're really excited about as well is if you're interested in climate change, environmental things, we have Paul Hawken coming. He's the author of Drawdown. This is a very comprehensive plan to mitigate the effects of global warming and has a lot of really kind of practical things that can be done to address climate change that we're facing that's becoming more and more of a problem.
So this is a nice mix of nonfiction and fiction. I mean, a lot of people, I have friends who are like, I only read nonfiction. Okay, go ahead. But I'm a fiction reader, and I like fiction, and I love novels, and I think that they're just as legitimate. We have just as much to learn from novels. And we were talking earlier before the show about The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, and that is a remarkable, extraordinary book. And I've recommended it to so many people, and I know that she will be rescheduled to a later event.
Yes. So we are really excited about this. While Angie Thomas is not going to be part of this year's festival, we are going to be doing an off-season event with her in the coming year. And we're really thrilled about that. As you said, The Hate You Give has been a really...
It's very impactful. I mean, literature, you all wouldn't be teaching creative writing if you did not absolutely believe that literature impacts our lives. Our understanding, the evolution of humankind is as much fiction as nonfiction.
Yeah, and that's really a book where it's tackling a very current issue.
Right.
It was inspired in some ways by the Black Lives Matter movement and the issues of police brutality. That book follows a teenage girl who witnesses a police shooting and sees her unarmed friend be killed in front of her, and how she gets kind of caught up in the fallout of that, and as she's grieving. It really brings that experience home for you, you know?
It is, because it's one thing to know the facts of a police shooting, it's another to experience how it feels through a character who is describing how it feels to be in this situation, to deal with this situation. That to me is the gift of literature, is being able to make real and to help people feel something we might know but we don't really understand.
Absolutely. And the festival is a great chance to try on a lot of that. One place, so I would love to talk about all over 150 authors
I know,
we have.
150 authors, that would be hard.
Yeah, it would take a while just to list them, but if you go to fallforthebook.org, you can explore our full schedule. We also have a free app you can download. You can sort it by genre, so if you're really interested in fiction or book club fiction, or memoir is what you're interested in, or science, right? You can filter it down by that and explore what we have and build your own schedule so you don't miss a thing, because we've got a lot going on. So building the schedule is key.
Is that new? I love a good conference app. I go to a lot of conferences, and when you've got a good app, you can build your schedule. Is that new, or have you had that for a while?
We've had it for a couple years, but we have changed to a new provider, and it's awesome. It's really easy to use. It's color coordinated, so again, for all you visual people,
Wow.
it's very handy to figure out what you want to go to, where it is, and all of that.
That's fantastic. That's a good investment of resources, a good conference app, because you have got so many things going on simultaneously is the big thing. You have to decide between this one, and also the travel time between one location and the other. So you can tell I've been to a lot of conferences. It's like, I don't know, can I actually do that?
Yes, that's always one of the challenges.
And are there descriptions there too, I imagine? So
yes, you can find out all kinds of things about it. The app will list who the authors are, what the genre are, and a little bit about the topic they'll be discussing.
And I will say one day that might be excellent for this is Saturday, October 13th. It is our big community day. Last year was the first year we partnered with the City of Fairfax Fall Festival. It kind of happened by accident, but it was one of the best accidents that has ever happened to us. So we're doing it again this year, Saturday, October 13th. We have free parking in Rappahannock parking deck on Mason's campus. There's a shuttle downtown so you don't miss any of the fun arts and crafts fairs. On campus, we have a full day of events, so a lot of the names that we have listed, General Hayden, Mike Leinbach, the YA panel, all of that is happening on campus. Elizabeth Kostova, probably most readers know her from her blockbuster, The Historian. She's back with a new book club hit, The Shadowland. So she will be our 3:30 headliner.
fantastic.
So pretty much we have something for everybody there. And then for families, we have a whole lineup of interactive kids events down at Old Town Hall. They're going to be making masks and having story time and learning how a 3D printed beak saved a bald eagle. So a lot of really cool stuff.
That is brilliant, because, you know, like I said, I live in the heart of historic Fairfax City. So I go to the Fairfax Fall Festival every year. Actually, I'm part of the City Dims. We always have a table there. But using the Old Town Hall that way is absolutely brilliant. There are so many families and children that are already there.
Yeah, and we had such a great response to those children's events last year, so we're really excited to see a lot of families come out this year. And one of the things we love about that is, like you said, it's hard to kind of figure out where you're going, get from one place to another, but on that Saturday day, it's going to be really easy for you. You come, you park at Mason, you can take a shuttle bus down to Old Town Hall in the city of Fairfax and take it back to the campus. So you really will be able to do quite a lot that day.
That is fantastic. And of course, you hope that the weather holds out, but actually, usually it's pretty good. October 13th is a pretty good day, so.
Most of our events are inside.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
Fingers crossed.
And then everybody will need to come back to campus for 5 o'clock because we are doing something I'm so excited about. It's called Literary Deathmatch. And it is, LA Times called it basically the most entertaining reading series ever. And there are 3 judges and 4 readers, and they present and compete and do a little bit of trivia, and you get all the fun judging of like American Idol, but without the meanness.
There you go. Us book lovers, we are not mean people. Not at all.
No, so we're really, really looking forward to it. So a lot of author names.
Yes. There's a great lineup for that. We're going to have Benjamin Percy is going to be participating in Literary Deathmatch. Joseph Cassara, who wrote another really popular book recently, The House of Impossible Beauties. Alexandra Petrie from the Washington Post will be part of Literary Deathmatch.
I totally love her.
It's going to be so much fun.
I totally love
She's
that woman.
very funny.
Oh my God, she is. Her genre, though, is the newspaper, which I like. You know, I mean, that's where she does some of her best work, and I just love her.
Oh, yeah. So that's going to be a really fun way for us to kind of close out our 20th anniversary festival.
So as years go forward, obviously it's about bringing authors and books, but it sounds like you're also experimenting and doing different things too, like the children's events at Old Town Hall, the Literary Deathmatch. So, you know, every year it's going to be a little bit different, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we will be working on the 2019 festival, you know, within a couple of days of the 2018 closing. So it's always something a little bit different and really exciting.
And people should look for the author book talks that are in the public libraries too, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And those are all on the app as well.
Right.
We have, oh my gosh, so many great. We have one author, Joseph Esposito, coming to talk about the crazy night in the JFK White House where all these Nobel laureates came and had a infamous party.
Of that. Yes, that famous JFK quote about the greatest assembled minds except for when Thomas Jefferson dined alone. I think, you know, I can't remember too many things, but I remember that one.
So, I mean, we have so many great events at the libraries, and then it's nice because it's right in your neighborhood, and you can come. I'm just really looking forward to pretty much all of it.
All of it.
Pretty
all of
much.
it. And so the fact of the matter is, too, that it's free. I think that's really important. You don't often get the opportunity. I mean, there are lots of events in D.C., but politics and prose and lots of things at 6th and I that you can do throughout the year that has a cost to it. So what you've managed to do is assemble all of these wonderful authors to the public for free.
Yeah, and that's really important to us that we have a festival that's free and accessible to the public because this literature is for everybody, and we want to make sure that it's getting to everybody.
And I think one thing that I'd love for people to know is that Fall for the Book is our own nonprofit, and we do run all of this solely on donations. So we have our wonderful sponsors and partners, but community members, we have a number who have supported us through the years. And if you're interested, you can go to fallforthebook.org/friends. Some benefits of friendship are going to VIP receptions to meet some of our headliners, including Tayari Jones and Elizabeth Strout.
Well, that is fascinating. Thank you so much for being here. And this is what you need to know about Fall for the Book.